In today's video I've got my hands on Wooting 60HE Plus, the successor to their popular 60HE, now offering screw-in stabilizers. This keyboard promises to elevate your gaming experience to the next level, allowing you to take control. Let's dive right in and talk about just how much is under the surface of this little keyboard. Let's kick things off with the packaging, and right off the bat I get the sense of Wooting going the extra mile with their packaging. The box features glossy accents across the matte finish both front and back, with the front containing their logo and the name of the unit in question, the 60HE Plus. On the back, Wooting displayed their main take control messaging as well as some generic information and trademarking. Getting inside the box, the 60HE is front and center, protected by a dust cover, but we'll come back to the board itself. Cleverly, Wooting decided to omit the paper user manual by including a scannable QR code for quick starting as well as the diagram for the strap assembly. Your eye was likely drawn to the greeting postcard, where Wooting encouraged you to reach out with any inquiries you might have. Up to this point, the unboxing feels really personalised and really shows Wooting's attention to detail. They even threw in this symbolised heart here. Continuing to the accessories, the first thing you'll find is the strap, which once again features that take control messaging. Wooting have really consistent marketing, which is nice to see. You also get a black and yellow braided USB Type A to Type C cable, which has a super important use case that we'll be going over later in the video. You get a bunch more accessories in this Ziploc bag, including a couple of spare switches, the strap attachment, a couple of spare case screws, and a very basic keycap holder. So yeah, I was really impressed by the unboxing experience. Now let's quickly outline some of the main specs and features of the 60HE. My Wooting 60HE Plus comes in at $174.99 in the ANSI layout with pre-installed keycaps and lacquer linear 60 switches. The board features a compact 60% layout with 61 keys total. For connectivity, it features a wired USB Type-C mode. Being gamer-centric, it boasts features like adjustable actuation, rapid trigger, and dynamic keystroke, among others, which we will get into. Let's talk about the design language of the 60HE. It's got that gaming vibe about it with the black on black colour scheme and the RGB shine through keycaps. Given this is a competitive gaming keyboard, I was actually glad to see that Wooting didn't try to take too much design inspiration from the minimal world of aesthetic keyboards, whilst taking just enough to set it apart from other typical gaming keyboards. I think its compact 60% layout lends itself well to its purpose, cutting out all of those keys that you simply don't need for the reason you're buying this keyboard. Not to mention the space it frees up for mouse movement. Perhaps the main unique design choice here was the strap. It won't be for everyone, and Wooting knew that, so it is detachable. The underside features 4 contrasting yellow rubber pads, a bare minimum feature of any keyboard, especially one you can't afford to have sliding around your desk mid-clutch. The rear edge features a ribbed design, a feature outlined by marketing, although not one you're ever going to see while you're using the board, so make of that what you will. The USB Type-C port is located to the far left side of the rear edge. It's barely recessed, so you should have support for any cable you've got yourself, like this right-angled one I often like to use. Finally, there's a Wooting logo engraved into the front curved edge. I don't mind this too much, it's minimal so it doesn't detract from the overall aesthetic. The 60HE is utilising a universal tray mount, which means you can actually take the internal sandwich out and slot it right into any compatible cases like the Tofu 60 for example. The 60HE is crafted from an ABS plastic, so it's not going to be the most robust or heavy keyboard out there. That being said, I was pleasantly surprised with the build quality. It does feel sturdy and well built, weighing 605 grams, although that shouldn't be much of a standout feature given its $175 price tag. Now, I was particularly keen to suss out the typing experience on the 60HE. As I'm sure you're aware, gaming keyboards don't typically have the best track record of feeling or sounding particularly pleasant. The Wooting board almost completely won me here. I was expecting a hollow, scratchy typing experience, but the board actually feels remarkably smooth and well dampened. I say almost completely won me because the stabilizers could have been a bit better. The spacebar in particular felt noticeably more hollow and rattly than the other stabilized keys. Overall, I was really impressed with the typing experience on this board, and the stabilizers can be tuned if you want to. For the American people, or people like me who just prefer the ANSI layout, your only option is to go for PBT keycaps. Some of the ISO layouts offer both PBT and ABS, however some ISO only offer ABS. I'll have a diagram on screen now. Anyway, in my unit I've got double shot PBT keycaps in the OEM profile. There's not much to say about that. Most people should be happy, just as I was. The legends are shine through, so your late night gaming sessions are perfectly doable without losing any visibilities on which key is which, if you haven't got them memorized. They have a respectable thickness, certainly thick enough not to sound hollow. Now, let's get into the main feature of this keyboard that unlocks all of those other features, the switches. The lacquer linear 60s are powering my keyboard, but you can also opt for the lighter linear 45. They're quite a silent linear switch that require a start force of about 40 grams, bottoming out at about 60. With their factory lube job, they felt extremely smooth to type on. Here's a sound test before we get into the real capabilities of these switches. Featuring Hall effect sensors, these switches allow for a variable actuation anywhere from 0.1mm at the top of the switch all the way down to 4mm at the bottom. This differs from traditional mechanical switches, where there's an actuation point usually around 2mm. Okay, so that was a lot of talk, but what does it mean? Let's use two practical examples. Being able to set your actuation point right at the top of the switch, it allows for instant responsiveness to your input, which in a high level gaming scenario allows you to pull out that nade faster or switch to your pistol just that bit quicker. On the other side of things, accidental clicks have gotten us all killed when our resting thumb hits the spacebar and we go for a jump shot in Counter-Strike. Bad, I know. By setting the actuation all the way down at the bottom of the switch, even small tips and misclicks will be prevented from registering that keystroke unless fully bottomed out. If it wasn't obvious, this variable actuation is available on a per key basis, allowing for ultimate customization. Okay, let's take the capabilities of these switches up a notch. If you've been around the gaming scene long enough, you'll likely have heard the term rapid trigger being thrown around. Let me explain. Rapid trigger is all about the reset point of the switch. In a traditional switch, the reset point is always once you go back over the actuation point, but through the use of magnetic switches, it can be in an instant. This allows for the key to be repressed mid-motion without needing to repass any fixed actuation point. Again, let's put this into practical terms. In games like Counter-Strike or Valorant, where movement is key, rapid trigger allows your character to come to a halt much quicker, resetting your aim. For those of you who play games like Counter-Strike at a moderately high level, you'll be able to appreciate just how clutch of a feature this is. Another feature made possible by these Hall effect switches is dynamic keystroke, or DKS. This is definitely more of a niche feature with less game-changing possibilities, but it essentially allows you to bind up to 4 inputs to a single keystroke, 2 on the way down through the keystroke and another 2 on the way back up. There's another feature here called mod tap, and it allows you to bind different actions to a key depending on whether you tap or hold it. A really useful case for this feature is made apparent when you think about the lack of arrow keys on this 60% layout. Let's take these keys in the bottom right. By mapping their tap action to the arrow keys, you can then keep their default functions as is. And now you have arrows. Another cool, but again less game-changing feature is the toggle key feature, that allows you to lock a key on or off with a tap, or keep its original function when held. A practical example of this could be seen in the likes of Minecraft, where tapping the shift key would toggle the walk state rather than having to hold the key. A cool feature available directly through the keyboard itself. With Hall effect sensors, the switch can detect the position of the magnet at any given time, which opens these switches up to analog movement. If you don't know what that is, it's basically the behavior you get with a controller where the amount you move the joystick corresponds to the amount of in-game change. This means the 60HE can be used for driving games where the amount of force controls perhaps the amount of turning force you're applying to the car. In my opinion, this analog control is a nice feature to have. However, Bad Seed Tech made a good point in his review, stating that we're not really programmed to operate a keyboard with varying amounts of force. We tend to just bottom out the key and lift off again, right? Meaning, to get the benefits of this feature, you'll need a considerable amount of practice and just generally really good fine motor skills. This keyboard features a mode called Tachyon mode, and it's built for speed. It halves the response time down to about 1 millisecond, which disables useless processes, like RGB for example, so it can assign max scanning rate to the keyboard inputs. If you're performing at the highest level or just want the most possible in-game advantage, you might want to enable this mode. One important note is that for stability, you'll need to use Wooting's included cable for technical reasons that I'm not particularly qualified to comment on. All of the features I've been explaining are configurable through their Wootility software. The software is available on Mac, Windows and Linux, but most importantly, all Chromium browsers. You aren't required to install the software, rather opt for using their browser tool. All configurations are stored directly on the keyboard's onboard memory, so you can plug and play at more than one setup. Really huge feature from Wooting. You can create profiles and configure your mappings across 2 layers. I'm super happy to report that this software is really easy to use with a really intuitive UX. Something that you can say about pretty much no other software drivers that ship with keyboards these days. Let's quickly run over some more features that just make this keyboard a really well-rounded offering. Let's start with the per key RGB. It's really vibrant with perfect coverage and as mentioned shines through the keycaps nice and bright. The caps lock key serves as an indicator LED when toggling that mode. The 60HE supports Wooting's SDK. This means you can use open source programs like Artemis or Project Aurora for advanced RGB and analog effects. You also get N-key rollover, which essentially allows the keyboard to register several keystrokes all at once. A must-have feature for any gaming keyboard. Finally, I want to give a fair warning to the ragers of you watching. As this keyboard uses Hall effect sensors, which rely on measuring proximity accurately, banging this keyboard around will actually register input. That's not so much of a flaw on Wooting's side as it is just an architectural downside of Hall effect switches. So yeah, that was a lot to process. To conclude, the Wooting 60HE Plus is a nice, tastefully designed variant of your typical gaming keyboard. Its compact design is perfect and exactly fit for purpose in my opinion. Optimum put it perfectly when he said that he was nearly offended by how good the typing experience was, coming from somebody with a good knowledge of custom keyboards. I completely agree. The switches, they genuinely provide a competitive advantage in games, so it quite literally is pay to win here. Taking a step back, from the packaging to the website and documentation, the Wooting team clearly care about how they're carrying themselves, which made my time with this keyboard all the better. I say my time with this keyboard like I'm going to be putting it away after this review. On the contrary, this keyboard is now the only keyboard I'm going to be using for gaming. As far as recommendations, well, I find it pretty pointless to provide any. If you liked any of the outline features, you're probably going to want to pick up this keyboard. That concludes this review. If you liked it, consider dropping a like and subscribing. Your support is greatly appreciated. A huge thanks to Wooting for providing the products featured in today's video. Rest assured, my thoughts and opinions remain unbiased and unaffected. This keyboard really did just blow me away.